Good afternoon, dear colleagues and guests. Today it is the 4th of June 2021, 12 p.m. according to Moscow time. Allow me to consider open the meeting of the Dissertation Council for the defense of Kruglikov's dissertation for the degree of the candidate of Philosophical Sciences, Specialisation 090001, Ontology and Theory of Knowledge, on the topic Temporal Forms of Subjectivity. According to the order of Alexander Gnotov, St. Petersburg University Scientific Secretary from the 26th of March 2021, number 2339/1, me, Diakov, Doctor of Philosophy, Associate Professor, Head of the Department of Ontology and Theory of Knowledge, St. Petersburg University, was appointed the chairman of this Dissertation Council, and by the same order the members of the Dissertation Council were approved. Bistrov Vladimir, Doctor of Philosophical Sciences, Professor, Head of the Department of Philosophical Anthropology, St. Petersburg University. In the remote interactive mode, we have Markov Boris, Doctor of Philosophy, Professor of the Department of Philosophical Anthropology, St. Petersburg University, Sergey Nikonenko, Doctor of Philosophy, Professor of the Department of Ontology and Theory of Knowledge, Boris Sokolov, Doctor of Philosophy, Professor and Head of the Department of Culturology and Philosophy of Culture and Aesthetics, St. Petersburg University, Sergey Borisov, Doctor of Philosophy, Professor, Director of the Institute of Social Sciences and Mass Communications, Professor of the Department of Philosophy and Theology, Belgorod State National Research University, Peter Bayanich, PhD, Doctor of Philosophy, Professor, Belgrade University, Serbia. Our applicant, Sergey Kruglikov, is here with us. Also here with us there is a scientific supervisor, Savchuk, Doctor of Philosophy, Professor, Department of Culturology, Philosophy and Aesthetics, St. Petersburg University. To improve the quality of communication, I ask you, dear colleagues, to turn off your mobile phones, but don't forget to switch them on when the floor is given to me. And audio and video recording of our meeting is being conducted as well as live broadcast on St. Petersburg University website. Simultaneous interpretation of speeches from Russian into English is being provided at this time. An email address is posted on the live broadcast of the meeting of the Dissertation Council, where during the meeting all listeners can express their opinions and send questions to the applicant online concerning his dissertation and the current scientific discussion of his speech. And thus they can take part in the scientific discussion. These questions will be forwarded to me by the technical services, and I will voice them during the discussion. Questions must be related to the applicant's presentation and the content of his dissertation, and the name, no voice in the name, position, and place of work of the author of the question must be indicated. Questions that are not related to the scientific discussion, to the discussion of the dissertation, to the text and assessment of the dissertation, and anonymous questions won't be voiced. In accordance with the procedure for awarding the academic degree of Candidate of Sciences, academic degree of Doctor of Sciences at St. Petersburg University, approved by local regulations of St. Petersburg University, hereinafter the procedure, a meeting of the Dissertation Council is considered eligible if at least 2/3 of the approved membership of the Council takes part in its work, but not less than 4 people. Our Dissertation Council consists of 7 people. All of them are present, including 5 members in the remote interactive mode. All members of the Dissertation Council and the applicant are provided with the audio-visual contact. Thus, there is a quorum. We can start. The procedure of today's meeting of the Dissertation Council with a total duration of approximately 2 hours is the following. A brief So we are announcing technical break number 1. There are some problems with the microphone. Technical break is over. We continue. The procedure of today's meeting with a total duration of approximately 2 hours is the following. A brief report of the chairman on the documents submitted by the applicants for a scientific degree and their compliance with the established requirements. Answers to possible questions, about 5 minutes. Then, a short presentation by the applicant for a scientific degree, reflecting the main points of his dissertation. Approximately 15 minutes. Questions to the applicant, strictly according to his report, no more than 2 minutes per question. Answers of the applicant, no more than 15 minutes for all questions. Speeches of all members of the Dissertation Council, in tune with the assessment of the dissertation research, with a summary of their positions, with questions and suggestions for the dissertation, about 10 minutes per speaker. The speech of the chairman with the review, no more than 10 minutes. Answers of the applicant for a scientific degree to questions and comments of the members of the Dissertation Council, no more than 20 minutes. Open discussion. Speeches at the request of those present at the defense of the dissertation, with a summary of their positions and/or with specific questions and proposals for the dissertation strictly on the topic of the research. No more than 2 minutes for everyone. At the same time, all interested people are requested to register in the registration form and completely introduce and fully introduce themselves before the performance. The name, surname, presentation by the chairman of questions addressed to the applicant, which came in order to discuss his speech, and scientific discussion of the broadcast of the meeting of the Dissertation Council on St. Petersburg State University website. Written questions of more than 2 minutes won't be voiced. Answers of the applicant, no more than 2 minutes per question. Speech of the scientific supervisor of the applicant, no more than 3 minutes. Discussion of the results of the defense by the members of the Dissertation Council before the open vote, during which the sound of the broadcast is muted. About 5 minutes, if it is necessary. Open roll call. Counting of votes by the chairman of the Dissertation Council with the entry of the results into the minutes of the meeting. Making a decision on awarding or not awarding an academic degree. And concluding remarks of the applicant, no more than 2 minutes. Dear colleagues, are there any questions or objections to this regulation? No questions? Dear colleagues, who are present here, please switch off the sound of your mobile phones, but those who are in the remote interactive mode, please don't switch off your mobile phones in case we have to connect with you in case of technical breakdowns. Thank you for your understanding. And now I'm starting to conduct the meeting. Chairman's brief report. Dissertation of Kruglikov Sergey for the degree of the candidate of Philosophical Sciences, Specialization 090001, Ontology and Theory of Knowledge. Topic Temporal Forms of Subjectivity was accepted for the defense by the order of Scientific Secretary Gnotov from the 3rd of March 2021, number 1495/1. Kruglikov Sergey wrote his dissertation research on the basis of St. Petersburg University. His scientific supervisor is Doctor of Philosophy, Professor of the Department of Culturology and Philosophy of Culture Aesthetics, St. Petersburg University, Valery Savchuk. The number of publications of the applicant, in which the main scientific results of the dissertation are stated, according to the list presented, 3 publications. There are 3 publications in peer-reviewed scientific publications from the list approved by the Ministry of Education and Science of the Russian Federation. There are no publications in journals indexed in the scientometric databases Web of Science and Scopus. The applicant for the degree submitted to the Scientific Secretary of St. Petersburg University, Mr. Gnotov, a complete package of documents for acceptance for consideration and defense of the thesis. All documents correspond to Clause 12 of Section 3 of the procedure. All the documents submitted by the applicant on the information I received from the curator meet the requirements and are stored in the applicant certification file. Their copies are held by an employee of the Department for Maintenance the Activities of Dissertation Councils, who is now in the hall. Before giving the floor to the applicant, dear members of the Dissertation Council, do you have general questions to the applicant, and if there is a necessity to announce and consider the entire list of documents submitted by the applicant for the defense? No questions? There is no necessity to announce the entire list of the documents. Thank you very much. Sergey, the floor is yours for the brief presentation. Thank you. Distinguished board members, dear guests, and those who are present online and offline, I would like to present my candidate dissertation on the topic Temporal Forms of Subjectivity. The problems of time and subject remain one of the key problems of philosophy, but their solutions do not have a single field of application and interaction. The relevance of this study lies in describing such a field and demonstrating how many interpretations of the problem of time and interaction, not so much as some pictures of the world, but literally starting from the subject and influencing the object at different stages of the concept of the first. The object of this research is the subject in metaphysical sense. The subject is time constituted by the subject. In order to find this structure and explain its present, we reconstructed the history of time and reconstructed subject. First of all, we speak about basic or earlier form. This form appeared from sacrificed ritual because the sacrifice is a means for the order the world has. And at the same time, the meaning of ritual practices is the opposition to chaos and cosmization, in other words, ordering the world by the forces of the world, that is, the community, the main instrument of order. It is clear that the main personifications of any order were kings and priests, that is, figures of power. Another basic metaphor or form of representation of time, a straight line or ray, also appears in connection with the change in the concept of sacrifice. Christianity thinks of the Messiah's sacrifice as the only and absolute one, after which there can no longer be another. Thus, the cosmos, the world itself, is confirmed once and for all, since its subject is the absolute itself. And in this case, time itself acquires the possibility of an absolutist interpretation. And for the genesis of the oldest known form of the concept of time, that is a circle, we consider sacrifice, which is repeated not because time was considered the circle. Thirdly, the form of imagination about the time, it is from Christianity. The time begins to be thought of a manifestation of the divine, not so much as a curse to the family, but as an instrument to salvation, in connection with which a third form of representation arises. A gap of messianic time, every moment can become a gate through which the Messiah will come to end time. So these three described forms combine the concepts of the subject of power, sacrifice, and time. First of all, as the finish and the most conflict manifestation of time reflection of antique philosophy, I would like to remember tempogenetic project of philosophy of time of Aristotle. The definition of time as a number of movements and vice versa, we can speak about regional movement and time, which is removed with the help of the mind of first engine. There is cyclic movement, temporality, and final aim of every movement is first engine, and that unified which temporizes everything which exists. As a historical example, I would like to give you the example of Benjamin concerning Paris manifestations when in independent places people started to shoot a tower clock. It reflects the idea of time and power, and Eligov's subject finishes when he spoke about the fact that with there was personal time in each city. It's synchronized in connection with the clocks of King's Palace, and this structure is interpreted in everyday speech. Let's take 100-year time. Century subordinates eternity, some basis of this life period, and in the end it leads to divine subject. We repeat that subject constitutes its own time, and when we see temporal constitution, we speak about the subject which creates it. Let us apply this structure to new European understanding of the subject. Cartesian project makes split in the notion of subjectivity. On the one hand, it is interpreted as quasi-absolute transcendental subject, absolute internal basis of the truth. On the other hand, we can speak about subject as an individual, It is at this point that an important theoretical breakthrough occurs in research. This view of the time of a secular moral law or ethics is perfectly consistent with the model of Newtonian time, uniform duration, simply ordering events as earlier or later. In essence, it is this secular model of total time and that becomes the main one due to the fact that the discourse of subjective forms of temporality described above is absorbed by the discourse of temporal forms of subjectivity in connection with the ubiquitous, the meaning that the second, non-personal, quasi-absolutist interpretation of the subject acquires, perceived not only by the transcendental tradition, but also by political, economic thought and various forms of utopian philosophies. This order introduces an inverted structure in relation to the described structure. Individuality does not precede, but on the contrary, it is determined time. If previously we said about an individual what kind of subject, such is the time, now in the situation of death of an individual subject, we say what time, such is the individual. So inside total time, a single unifying ordering all duration, the individual is defined, first of all, as an object among objects. The totality of time leads to the primary definition of a person as a citizen, subject of law, etc., which in turn leads to the formation of a community of units that formally reproduce each other, so that the differences and absence of these differences turn out to be the same. As a consequence, we say that ethics of difference or indifference is derived from total time, ethics simultaneously producing, legitimizing, and eliminating all differences, constituting, legitimizing, and eliminating all differences. Then, after being identified as one of the objects, the individual is formed as an active unit whose work is aimed not so much at transforming the world as at maintaining his own quasi-subject status, defined through the implyist gestalt, for example, a specific form of temporal enslavishment in the rhythms of production and consumption, based on the sacrifice of one's own time to both the order of production and the order of consumption. In the words of Marx, any economy is a saving of time. The latter also leads to thematization of final goal of the development of this logic, museumification of the present or the removal of time. Pleasure and enjoyment as the basis of subjectivity inevitably reveal the discreteness of their own presence, as well as an obstacle in the form of the principle of reality. Duration itself therefore turns out to be a direct threat, the removal of which will mean the achievement of the full ideal of satisfaction and victory over death. From here comes the tendency toward musification, the physical and digital accumulation and preservation of images, objects, and one's own aura of presence, ignoring the finiteness of existence. Our research has shown that this strategy of interpreting the Cartesian subject leads to the fact that the actual subject power, for example, the impersonal order itself, assumes the individual is synchronized, built into a certain temporal framework, similar to those described by Kierkegaard, formalizing it in a quality that would allow the subject power to remain unaffected by any individual rebellion or social crisis. Due to the next appeal to the cyclical form of sacrificial temporality, new victims are more digital or medial in nature, but their slaughter becomes almost permanent, which can be explained by the phenomenon of time acceleration as an infinite present. In return, the new order will gradually eliminate the limitations of the human race, subordination to each other, differences, labor, deferred satisfaction, etc., the reason for which, in the first place, is limited time or time itself based on indifference ethics, subject raises to the thing which was described as aesthetic subjectivity. It is characterized by discreteness of presence. It strives for receiving maximum satisfaction immediately. The final part of the musification of present and removal of time. The musification of present, it is a process which has to overcome the finish of humankind. Our reality is characterized of maniac accumulation of digital and physical images and all of present. It ignores our it should remove the problem of reality principle, and thus time strives to eternal, constant putting off till tomorrow of the end. We are connected with the events of sacrifice because we are aware of digital media victim. All time forms which are described, they are in secularized form. Total time as a basis, mission time, and cyclic time as prevailing form of organizing our everyday life. Thank you. Sergey, thank you very much. There is a question to board members. Are there any questions to our candidates strictly according to the report, reflecting the main provisions, according to the content of the dissertation? No more than 2 minutes per question. No questions. Boris? Do you have a question? Yes, I have a question. I read the work and heard you with great pleasure. I have a question. What is the subject of the time? Subject, individual, or power? Who constitutes the time? Thank you. Thank you for the question. In fact, it is an accurate question. This is the open question. It is necessary to have this subject, but I'm not ready to give the final answer what it is. Whether it is history or spirit or fate, we speak that there is temporal form. We are able to prove rather than about the subject, and through the study of the time we can outline the subject which constitutes this time. Thank you. It is the best answer. Dear colleagues, are there any other questions? No questions. Well, if there are no questions, we turn to the other part of our meeting, speeches of board members with reviews and evaluation of the dissertation research. And then our candidate will answer the questions. Our candidate can answer in turn or answer all the speeches after all reports are voiced. So it seems to me that it would be better to answer after each speaker. As you like. You will answer after each speaker, board member. There are no external reviews. We turn to the speeches of board members. Dear colleagues, I offer you not to read out your reports in detail. Your reports are placed on St. Petersburg University's website. Please outline only main moments, questions or remarks to the candidate. Only the most important things. Are there any objections? No objections. Thank you, dear colleagues. Let us get down to the reports of board members. I would like to give the floor Boris Markov, professor of the Department of Philosophical Anthropology, St. Petersburg University. Boris Vasilyevich, the floor is yours. There is it's no use reading out the whole report. It is very long. The topic is successful. The question is actual. What time means? There are some difficulties. If the problem can't be solved, in my opinion, Markov didn't answer Kruglikov didn't answer my question. The work is completed, and he considered different forms of temporality, which constituted by the subject, and we receive analytical theory of time, and it corresponds to the specialization. Time it's not the main question of ontology, and at the same time, taking into account changes in modern ontology, understanding of ontology, candidate addressed social, cultural concepts of time and managed connect historical, political time, and with the help of this synergy of philosophical time and concepts of time, transdisciplinary method. He used transdisciplinary method. It is not transcendental, universal method. This is a method which combines the methods of different disciplines. He based on phenomenology and other theories. It is clear that time is connected with power. For the first time, clock appeared. I thought that on towers of cities, and here the author mentions kings' palaces. The time measured with the help of bells strikes, and now everyone has a watch on his wrist. And there was a dissertation, and in the course of the research, it became clear that we are closely connected with the time. The actuality of dissertation is without doubt. The author made insight, contributed to anthropology, culturology, ontology, and in practice, this work is applicable in practice. It will help teach philosophical disciplines. It is necessary for practical politicians, businessmen. The problematics of time is connected with many questions, and it should be taken into account. And during the decision-making process, it is necessary to take into account the understanding of today's time. What is the disciplinary space? And here, the question of musification in the last chapter is in place. I'm not going to describe, to retell the content of the dissertation. Everything was taken into account. I was impressed by Descartes, that he influenced Kant. The author meant Descartes is understood as one of the pioneers of classical understanding of time. There is comparison with Nietzsche and this problem of repetition. In the problem of repetition, Nietzsche, instead of arrow, constant return of Nietzsche, it is very successful result. And now my remarks. The work is written in detail. It is higher than average level, but there are two drawbacks connected with literature. When I wrote my dissertation and articles, there were few books, but now there are many more books. In a month we will have the work of our Minsk colleague about the time, cyclicity of time. And there are two candidates who work over one topic, Molchanov's work. I would like to advise you to address old concepts. In the colleague from Yugoslavia, I faced with the author Mushola. His surname, please study his works. They will help you with the musification. It is a modern topic, a nervous topic. Everyone thinks that digitalization will save the past. It is the best form of memorization. And here the author says that musification means that the past becomes absolute, and the result, Messian time had some transcendence, and here there is a dead end. Lipovetsky writes a lot about the time. He discussed the era we live in. Postmodernist period has finished, and now it is ultra-modern. Number two, Girard campaign connected with the victim. I like reading these authors. They write in they use beautiful language. Today we produce a product, and sometimes we overestimate something with the aim to surprise people. If we remember by Heidegger, we focus on these two moments, and of course, in this respect, I would advise you to be more careful. To return archaic time is possible. Here you mentioned the circle. As an anthropologist, I remember Muravyov. Ants have the instincts when in danger. They start go along the circle. And modern rituals, when in case of emergency, especially in the Caucasus or East, people arrange in a circle and go along this circle. But I think it is dangerous. It is not safe. What are the consequences of this? Then, sacrificial rituals. Your scientific supervisor should tell you about Christoph, that rituals exist today. Sacrification, they come from bent forms, and I would not advise you to offer cyclic circle time as a way out from the dead end in modern conditions. On the whole, new archaics, the work contains the solution of scientific task. The dissertation is written independently. It is a completed work and it contains new results. The main ideas are reflected in his publications, and dissertation of Kruglikov on the topic temporal forms of subjectivity conforms with the main requirements stated by the order. Procedure on awarding academic degrees at St. Petersburg University, and our candidate deserves the degree of the candidate of philosophical sciences in specialization 09 or 01 ontology and theory of knowledge. The point of the order was not, point 11 was not violated by the candidate. I have finished. Thank you very much, Sergey. You have got the opportunity to answer Boris Vasilievich's remarks. Thank you very much. You were very accurate and your advice was very precious in terms of my work. I understand this drawback, our presence here. It is a solution to the problem. I will take into account in my future research. Thank you very much. Boris, are you satisfied with the answer? Yes. It was not the remark, but it was my wish, advice. Yes, I am satisfied. Thank you, Boris. Distinguished board members, I would like to give the floor to Professor of Belgrade University, Peter Bojanic. Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Kruglikov, for this thesis, which is very complex. A lot of literature was used. It is my first time in this dissertation council, to be the member of this dissertation council. I participated in Yekaterinburg's dissertation council. I don't understand why the thesis is both in English and Russian. Why was it translated? I don't understand which languages do you read. If it is only Russian and English, it's a problem, because you know that literature is always the most important part of the dissertation. And concerning the terms, it is very difficult to find them in PDF documents. It is blocked. It is a sort of a protest. In my review, there is one important moment. Sacrification as a characteristic of temporality. It is one interesting hypothesis, and I would like to develop it. Sacrification as temporality. Sacrification, it is an act. It means that sacrification, it is one act It is Protestant act. It is a project. In this respect, without this act, time is impossible. People expected something different. It is the hypothesis. Where is the problem in sacrifice? In this case, not time, by act plus time, action plus time. It is one question. Sacrifice. Victim, it is always a theater. Time is always never. Not only the condition for constitution of individual subject, Cartesian subject, rather than for collective subject. If I wrote this thesis, I would speak about collective subject. There is no time without a collective subject. It is a question, opportunity, as you like. The act of sacrifice. In missionism, there is a missionary act. In harmony with the time, if we speak about sacrifice, there is violence. There is a lot of literature in different languages. How to and how can you cite what kind of sacrifice is it? When I wrote dissertation, I considered Hegel, the dynamics of sacrifice. If you Hegel, sacrifice, nothing is possible without sacrifice. There is a question in this respect. As a project holds a group of people together in time. Sacrifice constitutes the group of people which expect something. The text about this circle, it is the best. The circle. You don't have any magic elements when you speak about this circle. Judaism tradition has one anecdote, beautiful anecdote, when one pupil asks the doctor when Messiah will come, and the answer was yesterday. It means that thesis is very beautiful and it is necessary. I don't understand why you use agams. You have got important text about time. It's not a good idea to use small texts. Use only important texts. You use Krugnikov's ideas, some his fragments. They hold thesis, counter-European philosophy. Thank you very much. Thank you. Mr. Bajanic, please voice your conclusion, how you appreciate dissertation. The dissertation. Thank you. Sergey, now you have the opportunity to answer. For your feedback. In fact, if we start from formal side, without doubt, it is the drawback. The drawback of my work is the lack of sources in English, in foreign languages. And as for the content, if we consider this connection of time to sacrifice, and if we consider it act, it has a deep sense of philosophical chronology. From the very beginning, Aristotle defines time connected with movement and vice versa. And this process has the power to collect the moment concerning architecture of work, of my work. It is partly connected with the subject concept, without doubt. Ritual collects the group at a certain moment. There is another understanding of subjectivity, and I wanted to trace this moment. As for Judaism tradition, everything that concerns the first part of my work, I tried to live philosophical structure. And for this reason, everything religious, this stage of religious kakigo, the description of all nuances of Messiah's expectations was left behind. Because I wanted to address new European subjects in order to concentrate on my ontological structure. Sergey, thank you very much. Mr. Bajanic, is satisfied with the answers? Yes. I am satisfied. Now I would like to give the floor to board member, Professor Sokolov, Boris Sokolov, head of the Department of Culturology and Philosophy of Culture and Aesthetics, St. Petersburg University. Dear colleagues, can you see me and hear me? Dear colleagues, yes? Everything is okay? Dear colleagues, on the whole, the dissertation gives positive impression. Sorry, switch on your camera. Please switch on your camera. Sorry. Well, remote interactive mode has some peculiarities. I was impressed by the dissertation, first of all, because our candidate managed to explain formalized things. I liked it, as well as I will say some things which have already been mentioned. The problem is huge, and it is impossible to solve this problem with the time. Previous statements about useless time and so on, they are actual nowadays. Everyone tries from his point of view to contribute to the understanding of time. The work is philosophical. There are pluses and minuses. The plus is that candidate is aware of Heidegger, Husserl, Aristotle, but there is a drawback, and essential drawback. The text is written in semi-philosophical language. When the author addresses anthropological data, we receive ivory tower. It seems strange, especially in the 21st century, when structures of everyday life are very well organized. Heidegger saw reflexive view as thematization develops from the things which are not far from philosophy, but sometimes they go in parallel with philosophy. Methodology is absent. When the author starts reflecting on mythology, there are a lot of anthropologists who won't allow to orient at logics and discourse of philosophical knowledge. And victim power, it's not enough. The candidate didn't answer the question about the connection of time and power. In these basic structures, which can be fixed in the epoch of mythological understanding, mythological time, which is divided into sacral and profane time. The huge fact and in this respect, the conclusion before Descartes, everything which is before Descartes is in doubt. After Descartes it is easier. We are in this paradigm and feel what is happening inside ourselves with respect to thematization and living in this time. In a certain time, clock, it's Spendler's quotation. It is unpleasant symbol of new European tradition for him. Tower clock on the square. It can be connected with power. But it is not King's Palace where the training of cognition type was. Clock on town hall is more important. Despite these drawbacks, everything is studied within the limits, possible limits. Kierkegaard is original. I don't agree with everything connected with Nietzsche, but I agree that the view is original and we should follow it. General conclusion. As a board member, consider the following fact, that the dissertation and the study conforms with the requirements necessary for the degree of candidate of philosophical sciences. Despite my remarks, they were caused by the complexity and impossibility to solve this problem. My attitude towards conclusions is positive. Our candidate deserves the degree of the candidate of philosophical sciences in this specialization, and the procedure was not violated by the candidate. The work is completed. Thank you. Sergey, you have the opportunity to answer the remarks of Boris Georgievich. Thank you very much for the remarks. Everything that concerns the fact that we live in a certain time, the fixation of vivid time, actual time, the structure of work, built the ivory tower in connection with life cosmos, and partly it was connected with the structural approach, or approach to structure first of all. And I fully agree that this moment of immersion and reflection concerning the situation, secular and sacral time, it requires more reflection, more conceptualization. Thank you. Sergey, thank you very much. Boris, are you satisfied with the answer of the candidate? Boris, thank you very much. I would like to give the floor to Professor Borisov, Department of Philosophy and Theology of Belgrade National Research University. Thank you very much for the floor given to me. I read this text with great pleasure. Allow me not to repeat what is written in my review. From the formal point of view, the dissertation conforms with the requirements and deserves the degree of the candidate of philosophical sciences. A few things I would like the author to explain to me. Sorry, Technical problem, technical break, number 2. 1:05 p.m.
Борис. Технический перерыв номер 2.
Technical break number 2 is over. 1:06 p.m. The dissertation, it was very interesting to read this dissertation, and Sergey took a very complicated topic because a lot was mentioned. My colleagues expressed their opinion. It is very difficult to speak about it in such a broad context. Victim, the problem of power. The work itself is constructed in chronological order. While reading this work, I understood that it would be better to explain when the circle is discussed and sacrifice, it would be better to express the idea that together with the sacrifice there is the opportunity of break. When he speaks about the line, it would be better to explain that there is a opportunity of fail. And the last stage, the stage of intermediary position. It would distort this logical concept, author's concept. And mixed this logical order. But it seems to me that it would be interesting. The work is completed. The work is interesting, a huge volume of material. Thank you. This moment, which is connected with the fail, it is explained in the part connected with individual subject. It is a very precious remark. It should be immersed into discursive subject of quasi-absolutes. Sergey, are you satisfied with the answer of our candidate? Yes, thank you very much. And now I would like to give the floor to the board member, Professor Sergey Nikonenko, Professor of the Department of Theory and Ontology of Knowledge, St. Petersburg University. Good afternoon, dear board members. Can you hear me well? Yes, thank you. I will be as brief as possible. It is published when I found out that Kruglikov is going to defend his dissertation. It is a special defense because it is a scholar of the Department of Ontology and Theory of Knowledge of St. Petersburg University, and we have known each other for a long time, and I know our candidate from the best sides. The topic is very actual. The problem of time is a classical problem of ontology and theory of knowledge. Everyone knows and understands it. I would like to highlight the positive moments. The big role is given to the analysis of the Russian ontology. A lot of concepts of Western classics are significant for us. The authors of work orient at them. Chernikov, a lot of reflections, discussions. Chernikov is used in this study, his ideas. There is one more aspect concerning the style of work, which is the disease of growth, but at the same time it is a dignity of the dissertation. The work formally corresponds to the requirements, but on the other hand, the author wants to write the monographic study focusing on his own theory of philosophical time. But as you know, the scientific novelty is the main component of the dissertation. And here you have this element. The drawbacks are small. There are three drawbacks. They are reflected in my feedback. Concerning the sources, my remark concerning the sources, there are some drawbacks. But there are few. If we speak about the problem of time, the block of Anglo-American philosophy, you don't use theoretical developments of time problem. For example, such classics as Magtagat, the author of famous time paradox, Prior, the author of the concept of time logics, and other famous classics, Russell, Ryle, Anker Smith, and so on. It is the first drawback. The second drawback, the work impresses a lot. Paragraph 4 of chapter 3 is not connected with the concept. It is called Gestalt of a worker. Some concepts, for example, violent means of production, erotic connotations, total reproduction of pleasure system, and other topics. It is hardly connected, can be hardly connected with the work itself. And number 3, provision 1 for the defense, page 13 of the text, includes the thesis that the time is defined by as a function of power. In our opinion, this provision is not fully explained, because the problematics of time is beyond the specialization, the theory of knowledge, and to some extent it can be seen from the text, but you know that there are no works without drawbacks, and these drawbacks don't spoil the overall positive impression from the work. The dissertation on the topic temporal forms of subjectivity conforms with the requirements stated by the order procedure on awarding academic degrees at St. Petersburg University. Our candidate, Sergey Kruglikov, deserves the degree of the candidate of philosophical sciences, specialization 09-0001, Ontology and Theory of Knowledge. Thank you for your attention. Thank you. Sergey, you have the opportunity to answer the questions. Thank you very much. The first part is connected with the fact that I am from Ontology department, and the definition of Deleuze, philosophical work, something in the middle between philosophical and science fiction. It influenced the style of writing. As for the drawbacks, Anglo-American tradition, due to the pressure of scientists' interpretation of time and subjects concerning narratives, historiography, we can't see them in my work, but it is better to address them in terms of development. As for Gestalt of work, the structure defined this paragraph. The reverse proportional reflection of aesthetics stage of individual and subject. It should have been explained in more detail. Thank you very much. Sergey Vitalyevich, are you satisfied with the answer? Yes. I would like to give the floor to board member Professor Bistrov Vladimir, head of the Department of Philosophical Anthropology, St. Petersburg University. The floor is yours. Dear colleagues, I would like to say first of all, it's a great pleasure for me to take part in the discussion of such an interesting work. And we have to express our gratitude to his scientific supervisor. I read the work with great pleasure. As any interesting work, it has some discussive moments. It is not deprived of drawbacks. I would like to focus. I'm not going to read out my full review. I would like to focus on these discussive moments, problematic moments. My colleagues, board members, mentioned them. That's why I will be as brief as possible. The first remark concerns bibliographical apparatus of the work. Bayanich mentioned it, Nikonenko. In fact, Sergey Timofeyevich says that he knows only English as a foreign language. He does not know German of range, but even English literature on temporality is not used by the author. the author works with translated works and gives the impression that the author can't orient in this sphere, and it is difficult for him to define his own contribution into this long-term, diverse and rich tradition. It is the first remark. It is a drawback. It would be better to work in detail with these sources. Then the formulation of research tasks. On the one hand, I see a pretension for more large-scale research. This topic deserves a doctoral degree, temporal forms of subjectivity. On the other hand, the tasks formulated by the author in the introduction to the dissertation, the study of genesis of time concept, the restoration of description and analysis of relationships of subjects, attitude of subject, the analysis of structure of the relationship subject-time. Within the frames of this tradition, these tasks were solved long ago. Moreover, when we read Heidegger, Being and Time, we can see the solution to these tasks there. Remark 3. Here I can't agree with you. On the one hand, it is necessary for interpretation of authors' concepts they address Kant's critics. Here I will explain. Kierkegaard, Sergey. If you take into account Kierkegaard, Sergey thinks that each of these three stages of existence conforms, has its own temporality, and he uses Kant. In my review, there is a quotation from the second critique. I am not going to read it out because I clearly understand that it is very difficult to understand Kant. But it seems to me that Kant disapproves the opportunity of such interpretation of his time analysis. He does not have, he has only one analysis. The next important moment, some of colleagues mentioned, is anthropological aspect of the work connected with formulation of this of such provision conclusion. Let me cite it. The understanding of metaphor of time has genesis. We think that initially time, it is the function of power, process of legitimation of ruling subject. Here I want to say that I agree with this conclusion. It is valid, reasonable, but it is not explained in your work. It's not necessary to give argumentation. It is enough to address bibliographical list some key works on theory of sacrifice. They are beyond your attention. On the whole, I have positive impression from the work. It is an interesting work. It is written with the help of analytical method. which makes your study more than average. That's why my conclusion is the following. I have to voice it to full extent. Dissertation of Sergey Kruglikov on the topic Temporal Forms of Subjectivity conforms with the main requirements stated by the order from the 1st of September 2016, number 6821/1, procedure on awarding academic degrees at St. Petersburg University. Our candidate Sergey T. Kruglikov deserves the degree of the candidate of philosophical sciences, specialization 090001, Ontology and Theory of Knowledge. Thank you very much for your attention. Sergey, you have got the opportunity to answer the remarks of Vladimir. Thank you. Concerning Kant, of course, I didn't mention then Kant postulates regional time or 2 times. I would like to say that if within the frames of the first critique we speak of time, we mean sensitivity aspect. In this, the second criticism supplements subjects, and it is different in temporal sense. The existence of God and is proved. The change in understanding of time is present. As for bibliographical remarks, I fully agree that there is a lot to work upon. Vladimir Yurievich, are you satisfied? And now, as a board member, now the floor is mine. In accordance with the regulations, I'm not going to voice my review. I would like to praise our candidate. And I'm not going to focus on positive moments. I'm going to focus on negative moments of this study. But first of all, before that, the style of your writing is very at a high professional level. As for remarks, the first remark concerns the fact that our candidate read the works of classics, but he does not pay attention to the research literature which is connected with the studied problematics. Russian and foreign authors concerned the topic of the research. There are 2 sides which is difficult to leave behind. It is impossible to read everything. That's why you should select only famous large-scale figures, and you should not spend time on other things. The second side is that candidate read authors of the second order rather than classics. And our candidate avoid this problem Candidate dissertation does not mean a solution of some fundamental scientific problem. It is qualification work. It's not a doctoral thesis. In this respect, candidate dissertation on ontology presents paradoxal genre. Candidate dissertation should not have your own ontological concept, because it takes a lot of time and effort. It is clear that our candidate has to base on classics of philosophy and secondary research literature, and that's why dissertation should be a sort of a blanket, a sort of diversity. The second remark: the task of our candidate is to have correlated things in order to avoid structural disorder. In some fragments, our candidate focuses on the concepts related to different philosophical mainstreams, traditions, or schools, and very often in the perspectives they can contradict each other. And I want to say that this remark is of personal character. The dissertation is logical, accurate. Dissertation on the topic of temporal forms of subjectivity conforms with the main requirements from the 1st of September 2016, number 6821/1, procedure on awarding academic degrees at St. Petersburg University. Our candidate, Sergey Kruglikov, deserves the degree of the candidate of philosophical sciences, specialization 09/0001, ontology and the theory of knowledge. Point 11 is not violated by the candidate. Thank you very much. Sorry, technical break number 3.
Борис Георгиевич, мы вас видим, но не...
Boris Georgievich, we can't hear you. Your microphone is switched off, possibly. Dear colleagues, can you hear me? Well, I use my mobile phone now because I have problems with the internet connection. Dear colleagues, technical break number 3 is over. It is 1:35 p.m. Sergey Timofeyevich. Thank you very much for your review. And we can see the frames. They are very close, and a lot of things were studied within the limit of these frames. Partly. Again, technical break number 4, 1:36 p.m. Boris Georgievich, you disappear sometime. What was that? I am here with you. Now we can see Bayanich, Professor Bayanich. Well, thank you. Technical break number 4 is over. 1:36 p.m. Eclectics is connected with the format and topic. Thank you very much for this remark. Thank you. I am satisfied with the answer of our candidate. Dear colleagues, dear board members, we continue our meeting. Now, as a procedure of the defense is open, please, those who are in the hall but who are not board members, please have the floor if you want. No volunteers. Up to now, there are no questions via email. In this case, having heard the answers of our applicant, there are no I would like to give the floor to scientific supervisor, Mr. Savchuk. The floor is yours. Dear board members, dear colleagues, I would like to focus on the personality and qualities, personal traits of our candidate. Well, I am not going to take your time. It was a great pleasure for me to work with Sergey. He is a very responsible and serious researcher. The topic he chose, Ontology and the theory of knowledge. In this discipline, there are few studies. Kruglikov, head of the council, says the same thing. It is a sort of proof that the department and discipline must exist, and the defense proves that no discourse or discipline is not does not exist in itself, and our candidate presented us the ivory tower. Of course, a lot of dissertations had such examples, I think that the topic of time and connection with the subject and correlation with the power victim proves serious outcome beyond the standards, and inclusion into the real problematics of disciplines anthropological aesthetics and other material was used. On the one hand, it is explained, but on the other hand, it is not enough of such a material. If you take the theory of knowledge, ontology, the only remark, it is a remark for me, by the text of the dissertation was written 4 years ago, but I did not have courage to make my candidate finish the version. That's why the defense took a long time. We had to shorten the text, and partly it was not positive, the attraction of material and so on, and detailization of the subject which were declared in the dissertation. They also were shortened. And my recommendation, the text and the speech and answers to the questions and the appearance of our candidate prove that we have a mature professional researcher with his own approach, view, and I'm sure that the defense is successful, and I hope that board members will take it into account. Valery, thank you very much. The genre of the speech of scientific supervisor does not involve answers of the applicant. Natalia, dear curator, are there any questions via email? Thank you. The discussion and the receiving of questions are over. The next point of our agenda, the next part, vote. And before the conclusion, dear board members, are there any remarks or questions concerning the procedure of the meeting, including the regime of the mode of remote interaction? Mr. Bojanic? No questions. Nikonenko? No questions. Professor Borisov? No questions. Professor Markov? Do you have any questions? No questions. Professor Sokolov? Any questions or objection or remarks concerning the procedure? Professor Bystrov? No questions. I don't have any remarks concerning the procedure either. Dear candidate, do you have any questions or objections? No questions. In this case, if there are no questions or objections, we turn to the vote. It is 1:44 p.m. according to Moscow time. Dear board members, now we have the opportunity before the start of voting to announce a break to discuss the defense results with the broadcast sound muted. Do you think we need such a break to discuss the results of the defense? There is no need. Let us vote immediately, without a break. We don't need to discuss the results of the defense. We continue our meeting and turn to the vote. Dear colleagues, the meeting continues. Please voice your opinion. It is an open vote in this procedure. The decisive minutes of the meeting are coming. Dear board members, turn on the sound of the broadcast of the meeting. Make sure that it is working. Please check if we all hear and see each other. Is everything okay? Yes. In this case, I'm raising the question of awarding Sergey Kruglikov the degree of the candidate of philosophical sciences in the scientific specialization 090001 Ontology and Theory of Knowledge. To an open roll call, I remind you that the decision of the Dissertation Council on the issue of awarding an academic degree is considered positive if more than half, but at least 3 members of the Dissertation Council who participated in the meeting voted for it. In accordance with clause 23 of the procedure, Bestrov, your opinion? I am for the degree. Boris Markov, your opinion? I am for. Very good dissertation. Sergey Nikonenko, board member, your opinion? I am for. Sergey Borisov, your opinion? I am for. Boris Sokolov, board member, your opinion? I am for. Peter Bayanich, board member, your opinion? I am also for, thank you. And me, the chairman, Alexander Dyakov, I'm also for the degree. I support the dissertation. Counting of votes. It's not a difficult procedure. Everyone was for. I announced that out of 7 board members who participated in the vote, 7 voted for, no one voted against, and no one abstained from vote. The decision on awarding Sergey Kruglikov an academic degree of the candidate of philosophical sciences in the scientific specialization 090001 Ontology and Theory of Knowledge is accepted. Our congratulations. Please applaud. And I want to give the floor to Mr. Kruglikov for final words. Now he is already the candidate of philosophical sciences. Your concluding remark, please. Thank you very much, distinguished board members. It is a great pleasure for me, great honor for me. I'm not sure what is better, receiving the degree or the fact that a lot of outstanding people wrote my dissertation. Thank you very much. Your remarks were precious, and I will continue my further research. Thank you. Thank you, Sergey. Dear colleagues, thank you very much. all participants, thank you very much. And the meeting is announced closed. Thank you very much for participation. Please switch off the live broadcast of the meeting.